Here's Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing the Gold. I am Shadan Larkey, joined by my much beloved and adored co-host Erica Richards, and we have a special guest this week, a return guest to Chasing the Gold. Returning guest, introduce yourself to our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah, my name is Héctor González. I am a film critic and writer for In Session Film, Loud and Clear Reviews, The Movie Buff, and I am the co-founder of the PRCA, the Puerto Rico Critics Association.
And you have an awesome background. I hope everyone is watching on YouTube. Hector, you have a drive-in theater behind you playing Blue Velvet. Everyone go to YouTube and see it because it's really cool.
Yeah, man, I had to. I just had to. I
I
had to
love
represent David Lynch.
So, listeners will know I had Hector on we did a 2-part breaking down every single film that you saw, which was a total blast. Since then, you have attended many other festivals, and you just texted me that you have seen 115 films during the fall festival season.
Well, and overall in the entire year during the festivals, covering from Sundance to right now at the New York Film Festival.
So,
Hector,
which festivals did you
Hector,
go to? Yeah,
I just have one question. When do you sleep? Like, truly, like,
Never.
when do you sleep? Do you sleep
Never.
at all?
Not at all. Not at all. It's very tiring, but it's the thing I like to do the most.
Yeah, it's the dream. It's truly
Yeah.
the dream. Yeah.
So, which festivals have you gone to? Like, name them all. Drop some names.
So Sundance, virtually, Berlinale, virtually, Cannes, then Venice and Locarno. Well, vice versa, Locarno and Venice, and right now New York, and I have a local film festival in the next couple of weeks here in Puerto Rico, and there's another one in Puerto Rico in November.
Wow. Okay, so our plan for this episode, I told you to bring me some titles that you wanted to discuss. And then because I think of anyone that both Erica and I know, you've seen the most sort of fall film festival titles. So we wanted to kind of get your view on everything that's going on, do some rapid fire fun stuff. But I guess let's just start with what films you brought us that you kind of wanted to dig into a little bit.
Whichever, like, which one, whatever, which one, like,
Yeah.
randomly.
Yep. Start naming movies. Just drop.
Okay. So overall, like, I saw 30 films at the New York Film Festival, and most of them were good. I think I should like talk about the weakest one first. I don't have much to say about it. It's the Elton John documentary, Elton
Oh.
John Never Too Late. Um so there was something interesting because the director of another film that's playing on the festival, which is called Pavements, the director name is Alex Ross Perry. He directed Her Smell and The Queen of Herbs, though indie films, very good films. And he stated that the reason why he made Pavements, which is an autobiographical portrait of the band Pavement, a slacker band from the 90s, which is having like a recent resurgence. And with this documentary, like, it's adding to that. He said that he wanted to make that film because he wanted to show how important Pavement really is to him, like what it means to him, what it means to the fans. He wanted to do something creative, innovative, and in the film, he makes like a museum about Pavement, a stage high school musical about Pavement, and a fake biopic about Pavement that mocks the usual awards type of biopic like Maestro or Bohemian Rhapsody, the like very trite films, very lazy films. And basically he just wanted to remove that, like, to make inspire filmmakers to create more innovative projects when tackling autobiographical portraits. And I think Elton John Never Too Late is basically what he's criticizing. It's basically a trite project about Elton John that literally does not add nothing new about him outside of a few personal moments where he speaks about like trying to avoid the same mistakes that happened to him and wanted to protect his family, want to like approve of them and whatever decision they want to make in their life. But apart from those themes, like it basically adds nothing. Like you can watch, I think, Rocket Man by Dexter Fletcher, and I think that's more informative and more creative and even more playful with what it does with with the stature of the Rocket Man, Elton John, who's one of the biggest showmen in music history, at least in my book.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I watched it and it was so trite and so lazy. It felt like almost like a Wikipedia rundown in between two stages of his life, like the height of his career in 1975 and now that he's retiring to focus more on his family, his kids and his husband. So I don't know. It felt weird that in the same festival and in the same section as well, there was Pavements, which is a creative autobiographical portrait about a band that not so many people know, but are learning to know currently. And then you have Elton John, Never Too Late, which is like the vacuous project that you can see more consistently. So I don't know. I found it quite interesting that the festival had both the weaker side of autobiographical portraits and the one that people should aspire to.
Hmm. Do you think the strength of Elton John, though, as a name, is going to be enough to maybe compel the film forward, or do you think people are just going to see through it?
I mean, I think it usually helps, because a lot of people know Elton John, and like I think overall when you attach a big name, such a nostalgic name to a project, I think people are drawn to it. But it's going to be on Disney Plus. A lot of people have Disney Plus, so
Hmm.
it's going to move people. People are going to watch it. People are probably going to recommend it, because it is the clean cut like biographical portrait. Has its high moments and it shows you a little bit of the pain that Elton John suffered, but in the grand scheme of things, these are nothing new. You learn absolutely nothing about Elton John. If you know about him, like you already know all these things. If you don't, well then you learn a little bit, but it's not substantial. But I think people might be drawn to it when it releases, when it hits streaming. It's a charismatic and flamboyant person in music. It's again one of the best showmen ever. My godparents and I think my mom too has seen him live. And everything is like they say it's excellent. It's a performance of a lifetime. So you hear great things about him, but this documentary isn't one of them, unfortunately.
That's interesting because that was going to be my next question was, did you learn anything new about Elton from this? And
Oh
I
no.
feel like someone like him, like who's so famous and so like prolific and like in the public eye so much, and we already know so much about him. I feel like if you're going to do something new, you have to show me something different or something I didn't know about him or his life or something. So then it's just kind of like, you know, cut and paste, but in a different way kind of thing. And that doesn't
Well,
always work.
I think the issue too, and we saw this with Rocket Man, is like the closeness does not allow them to actually take a look, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that he
Yeah.
just doesn't want to go there, which I respect, right? But like I think even with the documentary, I believe his husband is like one of the main
Yeah,
producers.
I think he's one of
Yeah.
the directors as well. He's
Yeah.
part of the main team, so it is basically as you say, like the closeness is the thing that deteriorates the same project because you don't have that vulnerability. You had that safeness. It's safe, it's
Mm.
clean cut. But what Erica said, there's one thing that it's a little bit interesting in it, and it's the inclusion of John Lennon, the Beatles, one of the faces of the Beatles, one of the Fab Four, and one of the last performances, I think the last performance John Lennon did in America was in an Elton John concert. And the interesting thing about that is when basically Elton John steps aside and lets like John Lennon take center stage, let the people embrace him, because of course, like he may be Elton John, but he's John Lennon. They paved the way for for Elton John's career, he was one of the inspirations, well, like one fourth of the inspiration of Elton John's career. So
Mm.
there's that. It's a little bit interesting, seeing him like step aside and let John Lennon take center stage. And there's like an animated moment with John Lennon and Elton John, partaking in some illegal substances. But like that's like the only fun moment in the documentary. Outside of that, it's like the same old stuff. And the moments in the at least the modern part of his career, it's the least interesting part because he doesn't say much, as you mentioned, Shadan. Um, it's that closeness. He wants to be a little bit like protective of his family, and
Mm.
in that protectiveness, you don't see him exploring like how he views like what the decisions he made in his past and how he like paves it to his children, like so that they can avoid it. They can move forward, like avoid the same mistakes his parents did during his childhood, which was very troubled. But again, you learn nothing, little to nothing about Elton John.
It's interesting you mentioned vulnerability. I think that that's something obviously we all look for in a film as a filmmaker who can, I don't, go there and be really emotional and vulnerable with his audience. Like, what are maybe a film or some films that you think did achieve that level of vulnerability and openness?
In the festival or an overall autobiographical portraits?
I guess just overall in the films that you wanted to kind of talk about and dissect with us.
Mm. There are a lot of them. There are a lot of them because for some reason there's like a mini thematic thread that was attached in the festival's lineup. For some reason there were many veteran filmmakers, people like Almodovar, Jean-Luc Godard, Leos Carax, Paul Schrader, David Cronenberg, among others, that made projects about like our fear of death, our basically the grieving processes, mourning, the overall dread that consumes us in the daily basis, amidst the moments of joy. um so somehow, like, many films connect with each other and serve as like nice little double bills. In the Cannes episode, we talked about I think, Canada, we talked about Leos Carax, It's Not Me, C'est Pas Moi. We had also the David Cronenberg film, The Shrewds, also playing at the New York Film Festival. But in relation to, like, to connect one episode with the other, I think Scenarios by Jean-Luc Godard is the film that has that element of vulnerability, but in the element that he made these shorts, basically he finished like making them the day before he decided to die by assisted suicide. And
Oh.
yeah, it's a bit of a of a dark film. He calls it, Godard, in the narration of Scenarios, he calls it as a final warning to us, because it covers death and covers war, but it like as another layer, he like it's basically haunted by the viewer knowing that literally he passed away 24 hours or somewhat, no, I don't know how many hours after he finished the doing the last touches of that film. And uh, like, for some reason, like, at least I was very impacted by how Godard, like, when you, because, okay, Scenarios, there's a short, an 18 minutes short, which is basically the short that he wanted to make. No, the story about war and death. And there's expose. I don't know a lot of French, but it's expose, which is basically a behind the scenes look at how he made that short. You see him doing the preparations, you see him doing the final touches, the editing, searching for images, like looking in his notebook, the collages that he's going to transcribe into images. yet in those moments as he's preparing the film, like somehow he's preparing himself for, for his death in like the next day. It's kind of morbid, but like I don't know, it's very very interesting project that's really transfixing, especially if you love Godard, which I have grown to love in the past couple of years, because I thought he was slightly pretentious when during high school, but then since the pandemic, I started like reading more about him and studying his films and writing about his films, and I have grown to love him a little bit more. And this shorts like is cements him, the overall encapsulation of what he means and what he wants to do with his work, but you know obviously in a new modern lens. And it's really fascinating how the editor who's helping him make this film is present, but he knows about his death, but he doesn't want to like talk about it. He wants to continue the work. He wants to finish this last film, this, as he says, this last warning. But um I don't know how to really much like talk about it without revealing too much about it, because I think it's very cinematic, even though it's two shorts. Basically, it's two short films, and people might diminish it because of its length, but I think it's even more cinematic than many of the films screening at the New York Film Festival. And interesting enough, in that same section, like there was the autobiographical portrait, the inspiring one, which was Pavements, and the trite one, which was the Elton John documentary. There was the Leos Carax short and the Jean-Luc Godard short. The Jean-Luc Godard short was like a farewell to us, while the Leos Carax short, It's Not Me, or C'est pas moi in French, was basically like an honoring of his death. Even though C'est pas moi is like also like an autobiographical portrait of himself, of Leos Carax, as he ponders about politics, his life, the future, his work, cinema, art, and basically what defines him. Throughout that work, even though it is autobiographical, the presence of Godard is sensed in throughout that entire project as well. So there's a duality of vulnerability between two projects that are separate, yet somewhat like without same connective tissue, because in some ways Los Carax is called Jean-Luc Godard's like disciple. And in C'est pas moi, you have like a voicemail from Jean-Luc Godard, which is also hunting, because we don't know when was that voicemail from. We don't know if it was near his death, or it was many years ago, or even like in its beginnings, in the 2000s or something like that. We don't know. But I think that was makes them both in some ways vulnerable without the particular subjects, Carax and Godard being vulnerable themselves. They're just expressing their vulnerability, but through images that most of the case, like it's basically exploring their own psyches.
You mentioned sort of these micro themes of big auteurs, or dealing with death and things like that across the sort of 115 spectrum of films. Were there other themes or patterns that you noticed started to come through?
I think most of them are like morbid.
Mm.
I think most of them are like pretty dark. At least throughout Cannes, if I remember correctly. I think it was basically that, like death, mostly like I like isolation, and I think it comes because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
It's almost like inescapable in a way. People were losing close friends or family members, and we were all stuck in our contained boxes or rooms, chambers of creativity. I think that, that isolation and that dread and melancholy, paved the way for many of these filmmakers to contemplate that, we are aging. We like in that like time frame, in that year, 2 years, near almost 3 years. No, somehow they got tapped into, like they felt like time passing even
Mhm.
faster. I don't know if you guys felt that, but at least I did in some regards. So I think that's the connected tissue overall, like isolation and basically death or loss, mourning. You know, those are like the thematic threads that I found crossing throughout each festival. At least like more in the European ones. In the American ones, you know, Sundance is basically all about coming of age and identity, but which is fine, you know. But I think the more interesting films came during the Cannes, Venice, and Locarno
Mm.
festivals, which covered that morbid curiosity about people's different perspectives about mourning processes.
You know, one conversation I saw happening a lot at TIFF was like this festival has still not gotten back to pre-COVID levels, and there was a lot of talk about like the strikes and the state of the industry, and like people seemed very preoccupied by that, and it was almost like this energy that was running through every. And I just wondered like what was that like, especially like you mentioned like in Europe, like do you feel like that was also something that people were really talking about or worried about, or is it just the sensibilities are completely different?
Strikes about the state of cinema itself, or strikes or about other topics or
Well, I
what
mean,
other
like, I guess
topics?
the strikes probably, I mean, a lot of people are worried about AI, and I think that that's
Yeah.
one of the big things about the strikes, but just like, you know, creativity or I don't know, all of these sort of fears about what the future of the industry holds, I think was very prevalent from what I've experienced. I just wonder, like, are the Europeans more chill about that, or are they also having like existential crises of like, where do we go
I,
from here?
I think many filmmakers have talked about outspokenly beforehand of premiering their films in the festival about the topic, because I think it's a prevalent topic that many people are asking filmmakers already. They want to know the thought. Like they want to know like who's on whose side, you know, who want to explore this new technology which might or might not be helpful, which I doubt it will be helpful, because you know it deprives the element of art, which is basically creativity, you know, the craftsmanship of the hand, of the mind, you know, the psyche itself, you know, just putting like outputs on a service, you know, it's not going to help. But there have been many like conversations during the festivals with filmmakers, and I think that they have said their opinions. Some of them like are interested in exploring like how it would work. Like they want to like try a little bit of things, you know, but it comes with a bit of drawback. I remember, I don't know if it released. I think it was last year. It released on Late Night with the Devil. You know, it used AI on one transition between, you know, like a bit of a second, and it caused a lot of backlash for just that second. And you know, in that case, you know, it's not. I don't find it bothersome, because it's like a few bit of seconds. You know, of course, it would be better if you can hire a graphic designer, you know, and do it by hand, and then you know the art of like a creative process. You know, I think that's like the better way of creating art. But you know, it causes a lot of drawback. And I think it was a director I like a lot in New York announced that Gia Zanke, the director of Caught by the Tides, he mentioned, and he was going to make I think, I don't know if it was going to be a short film or a feature length project, with the help of AI. I don't know to which degree, but it caused a bit of a stirring. You know, many people were like confused. We're like we like him a lot as a filmmaker, but he's using now this technology, and like we don't know what to feel about it. No, we don't know what he's going to use it for. We don't know if it's going to be based around an idea that an AI prompted, or he's going to use it like continually throughout the process of him making the film. We don't know the extent, but he mentioned it, and immediately people were like choosing sides. And I think when asking filmmakers about that, is just to see which side are they on, and like if people want to divide it. And I think that's a bit unfair in some cases. Like I think we should like let time pass a little bit and see what they're going to do, instead of criticizing just a mere comment. You know, it's just a comment. We don't know if they're going to use it. We don't know if they are going to dabble in it. But you know, I think it's a fair criticism, but just by a mere comment, I don't think it should be like taken to a mere extent of taking him to the side, because most of these
Yeah.
directors that are being asked about this, they are talented filmmakers. Zanke is a really extraordinary filmmaker, and each project that he makes, I find them really powerful. But considering that, what he mentioned, that he's already planning on it, it's a bit of an odd feeling. But let's just see how it goes, and let's just see like later what he used it for. But other than that, other than the process of AI, there are plenty of strikes. There were plenty of I think it was climate change stoppings during press screenings and
Mm.
regular screenings. There were one that were about the Palestine. I think it was like Bloomberg that puts money in some place that, and there were many like activists who stopped at screenings, especially during the Q&As. I think Pedro Almodovar was one that wanted one of the activists, the one of the protesters, to like he wanted to give in like a minute with the microphone so they can speak their minds, but I don't think they let him give in the microphone. But other than that, yeah, that's the overall scheme of things during the
Uh,
the festivals.
Perhaps not a great transition here, but you did mention Pedro Almodovar, and I mentioned during my TIFF recap the movie that I wanted to get to the most that I didn't was The Room Next Door. Uh, Tell us about that, because it's Pedro, it's Tilda, and it's Julianne Moore. Like,
Yeah, and
please,
I think
please say
yeah.
that it's good. First of
Oh my
all,
God. Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Um. sh- Okay. I'm going to say I didn't like it, but I'm going to mention why.
Oh
Um. Okay.
no.
So I love Almodovar. Like I think every cinephile has encountered has like Almodovar in some way, shape, or form. They must have seen a film, whether it is his latest one, Parallel Mothers, or Pain and Glory, or even Matador back in the 80s, the Labyrinth of Passion. One of these projects, it's probable that they have seen a film of Almodovar. And it's quite interesting because his career has somewhat like changed into different eras, and he started like as a provocateur, like creating stories about identity and sexual expression, but through like provocative means. There's a scene in Matador where a character, the introduction of the film is basically a guy self-pleasuring himself to scenes of gore in Mario Baba's filmography. It's odd. The film is fantastic, but it's like an odd scene that he wanted to put. He wanted to test out the minds during that time, and he was seen as a provocateur. But then he went to the melodramas in the style of Douglas Sirk, and I think that's where he found himself in his most successful tenure. With all about my mother, um, talk to her. I think those were the films that basically defined him as the Pedro Almodovar that we know today. And now, I think, at least in my opinion, he's making now more mature pieces of work, starting with Pain and Glory and then The Human Voice and Parallel Mothers. I think these films intertwine different elements of his career. Well, not particularly the provocative one, but the self-expression and identity themes cross throughout his filmography from one era to the other. And he remained with that melodramatic touch, but he got more personal. He got more political, at least political in Parallel Mothers, and more personal in Painting Glory. And now, and he's also grown in terms of playing with language, as we've seen in A Strange Way of Life and The Human Voice. Those are English language short films that he's making, and now he's doing his feature length debut in the English language. And I think the main issue with that is that I think the film is mostly lost when in that translation from Spanish to English. I think if he did it in Spanish, I think it would he would have tapped more into that that fervor, that fire that basically is present in his filmography. That element of like that tender touch that he basically adds to his characters. Um, the room next door is basically divided into two different sections. One is basically during the hospitals in the rural New York, and then they move to the lakeside, which there you see the room in the title, the room next door, the basically the room where Tilda Swinton's character is going to commit assisted suicide, which again another relation because there's the Jean-Luc Godard short, which he basically passed away because of assisted suicide. So there's another connective tissue, another veteran filmmaker who basically like is using that element of fear of death and mourning. Jean-Luc Godard in that short, and Pedro Almodovar in The Room Next Door. And I think that first section is very weak. That section where it's basically the character of Tilda Swinton, Julianne Moore reuniting. Julianne Moore basically feeling guilty that her friend Tilda Swinton is weak. She's ill. Basically the help she's having from her cervical cancer is not working, and she feels a bit guilty that she didn't know about it. They were very close. They even shared a lover, which is played by John Turturro, and he's not that he's awful in the film, but he doesn't fit within the mold of the melodrama that Pedro Almodovar wants to construct. So in that case, I found him a little bit silly, instead of not that he needs to be completely serious, but at least expressionistic. I didn't find him so, and I think during that section, I didn't find that expressionism from Almodovar. Not even if Tilda and Moore are like very good and they fit within the mold, unlike Torturo. But I think that dynamic, that catching up element with that in those segments were like very creaky. When they moved to the lakeside, where we basically explore that that political theme of euthanasia, which is basically illegal in plenty of countries, but particularly the United States. And when Padre Almodovar won the Golden Lion, he mentioned that he wanted, like he stated that this was his most political film. He wanted to talk about like how unfair, like if a person like wants to basically die, they should have the right to do so. And that element of keeping that away from them, it's basically they have to go to another country to basically fulfill that role, but they're most of them they're unable to do so. And during that section, the lakeside, you have that element of Tilda Swinton not wanting to die alone. So she asked Julianne Moore's character to, to help her to go to that room, to that house on the lakeside, so she doesn't die alone. Tilda Swinton in the room next door, and Julianne Moore waiting. But Julianne Moore's character is basically like a brooding, not a brooding character, but she's afraid of death a lot. And seeing that her close friend is not so much eager to go with that decision of dying via assisted suicide, via euthanasia, it puts her in a curious position because she doesn't want to convince her friend of not making that decision, but she wants to understand the reason why, and through that explore her own fear of death. I think that section is the one where Pedro Almodovar um ties things together. That's where he's strongest, when he defines his characters in an expressionistic way. But the thing is that the section comes very little too late, at least in my opinion. So we have to endure these creaky dynamics for a while until we get to the good part. And I think that's what failed the project overall.
Well, hold that thought, because that connects to another movie that we're going to talk about. But I do want to ask, because both Tilda Swinton and Julianne Moore are going Best Actress, and I have seen John Turturro creeping up the Best Supporting Actor rankings quite significantly in the past couple weeks. So I'm interested in, like, how do you feel about that? Because that kind of goes directly opposite of what you just said.
they are good. They're good in the film. They're really good in the film. Well, at least Moore and Swinton, not so much. At least in my opinion, Torturo. But I think if one of them has the highest chances, has to be Tilda. She's the one that has more
Mm.
to play with in terms of a character. She's wearing a little bit more makeup. She's dying. She has like a little bit more play in terms of emotions. Julia Moore, in most occasions, she's listening to the conversation. She's listening to Tilda Swinton's stories. Tilda Swinton has the most monologues. She's like telling these stories so that potentially Julia Moore can pass them around. There's a twist. There's a bit of a twist in the room next door, in its final, in that segment, which I don't want to spoil. I found it a bit ridiculous, but it may help the case. It may help the case of a potential nomination for Tilda Swinton. I can't say why, but if you see the film, you will immediately know what I'm talking about, because it's a bit of a of a strange turn. It's a weird reveal of a character that was mentioned, and when that character appears, you're like, no way. It's a bit silly. And yeah, that reveal, like, completely took me off from the exploration of death, because you see that character, you're like, no, no, okay, this doesn't fit at all. But be silly, Almodovar, have some fun, you go for it.
Okay, Hector. So that brings me to Luca Guadagnino's Queer, because when I
Yeah,
talked to Erica about it, I said something similar to what you said about The Room Next Door, which is that I appreciate what it was trying to do, but it took too long to get there, and by the time it got to the thing that it was trying to do, it was too little, too late for me. But you really liked it, so tell
yeah.
me why it worked for you.
Um, okay, so damn. Okay, let me see how I can recut a little bit. My opinion. Um, I think, okay. So Guadagnino's film A Queer is based on the William S. Burroughs book. Which, Guadagnino has a bit of a hard task to do, because he has to encapsulate, the essence of Burroughs and the book, because he wants to adapt the book, but also make it a little bit as a personal project. And at the same time, he wants to not, like, adapt the book to its fulfillity, to its complicity, but he wants to, like, do a portrait on Burroughs, because if I started reading, like, Queer before watching the film. And in the first couple of pages, in the first couple of chapters, it explains the process of how the novel was written, and it's basically like an autobiography of Burroughs itself, and some experiences he had, but of course a little bit fictionalized, but it's still based on his life. So he has a hard task of, that those elements, but also completing a novel that wasn't itself completed. So he has to, like, play a little bit with the story itself. But at the same time, I think another literary book, by Malcolm Lowry, Under the Volcano, makes its way to Guadagnino's adaptation of Queer. And the reason why I say so is because both um Under the Volcano and Queer are set in Mexico, one before and one after the war. And both of them are like cover characters. In Queer, there's Lee, played by Daniel Craig, and Under the Volcano, there's Fearman. He's like a British diplomat living in Mexico, and I don't remember the name of the city, but basically it's a city that it's basically fueled by a nearby volcano, so it's like a purgatory. But at the same time, that place where Lee is in at that moment, having cross paths between, like, a different book, a book that Burroughs made called Junkie, which, Queer is like a follow up to. Basically, that is a version of his purgatory. And in a way, Fearming and Lee are both junkies. One, Fearming, is by the bottle; he's an alcoholic, and Daniel Craig's Lee is basically a junkie, but by the needle. Like, he habitually, like, uses heroin. And I found very fascinating how Guadagnino, like, I don't know if it was intentionally, but I saw in that way how there are like books, two literally portraits, both somewhat autobiographical, or at least like taking inspiration from their own lives, Lowry and Burroughs, make their way into Guaraninos queer. And during that section, I also saw that even the works of painters also make their way. I saw a little bit of Edward Hopper, my bad, in the production design, and somehow those elements, those production, those sets, like look like paintings of Edward Hopper, my bad, um, because at the same time his paintings cover isolation. They cover like that mentality of being alone, of basically in a way identity, basically one forged by solitude, like searching for someone to be loved. And that's basically what Daniel Craig's lead does in some manner, looking for Allison. There's a scene in, I believe this is the first time that they see each other. That he's like Allerton's on the other side of the bar. He's alone, and Lee looks at him like he was a prey, like a gazelle, and he's the lion, and he does a pose, but it reeks of desperation, and that set looks like Nighthawks by Edward Hopper. And I don't know if you have seen that painting. It's basically like a diner, and everybody is like in different corners of the
Mm-hmm.
room. It's a very fascinating painting, and it looks like that, and like that act of desperation adds to that element of wanting to be loved. And when he gets Allerton, at least Allerton at first, because he then gets disinterested, he then gets bored, he doesn't want to hear the same stories that Lee wants to tell, because it reeks of desperation. He desperately wants somebody to hold him, and that paves the way to the second part of the book and of the film, which is the jungle, the exploration. That's like the last act of trying to salvage this romance that may or may not break depending on what they find, when they find that the yage, or ayahuasca, and that like drug is basically the thing that might salvage their romance, is basically like a gift from the gods in a way, that basically when they take it, it's like it more or less like succumbs to something like personal, like it enters them, and basically exits at self-expression, or at least love in some cases. And it the thing in the book is that they don't find the yage in this case. There's this whole section, this beautiful section, surrealistic, and it's, at least I found it wonderful. Many people I talked to said that they were a bit lost already to that section, because it took so long into getting to that fascinating element of surrealism, but in the same way, like the expression of their love or their distance in the same manner is almost like a duality of some sort. But I found it very fascinating, because you have the purgatory, and then you have this blast of expression, of fervor, of both cinematically and in terms of the characters themselves. So I don't know. I found it very fascinating, like a very bold experiment by Guadagnino. I think I love his adaptation, his remake of Suspiria a lot. It's one of my favorite films of all time. But I think this might be his most bold project. This might be his strangest one too. I don't know.
I will say I think that makes me want to watch it again with a different lens. Because I do think like the part where they go into the jungle, and that part is what really started to grip me. I guess I just wasn't invested in his journey in the beginning. But now I want to find all of those sort of references and watch it sort of with a different perspective and see if I feel differently. So mission accomplished, Hector. You really sold me on that one.
I tried my best.
So, okay, I have some rapid fire and Erica, for those of you who are watching, she is dog sitting, so she had to step away for her dog. She will be back. She did not ditch us. But Hector, in your 115 films that you watched, what is something that you didn't get to that you wanted to get to?
Well, okay, so I think I have gone through like most of my like cinematic watch list. At Cannes, I couldn't catch the Jean-Luc Godard short or Grand Tour. I think I didn't. No, I didn't see Seed of the Sacred Fig either during that section. In Berlin I didn't see Pepe, but now at this point, I've been covering the festivals like at sporadic times, but the New York Film Festival had a very excellent lineup, a very excellent slate during each section, the main slate, the spotlight, and the current section, that basically all of the films that I wanted to see were there. I got to see Grand Tour. I got to see I'm Still Here. I got to see ones that I even wasn't like that excited about, like Nickel Boys or Maria. You got to see those too. No, I got to see Pepe that I wanted to see, which is a very fascinating film too. I got to see the new documentary by Albert Serra, which won the Golden Shell, the La Concha de Oro in San Sebastian. No, Afternoons of Solitude. I got to see like most of what I want. Like I missed out, and I didn't get a chance to rewatch other films. I wanted to rewatch The Shrews by David Cronenberg because it was there, and he had a very interesting conversation about cinema, about how cinema is not really. I think he said for self-expression in terms of grieving in some case. I don't remember quite well his phrase, but like I want to see that again, but didn't get a chance to rewatch films. But like I got to see like most of what I had on my like watch list, The Brutalist as well, that magnificent towering film, that emulates the epics of the past and with a new modern lens. That was fantastic, and I got to see all of that. So I think by this point I got to see the great majority. I think I might be missing two or three films, but I think like at least I don't know, I don't recall which ones I might have missed. I had to see the individual lineups. I got to I think Ephes was one that I heard at Cannes was good, and I couldn't see it here either. So I think that might be one of them, but I don't remember quite well because there are so many festivals, so many lineups, it's too much. It's too much film. I don't remember which one played at which and which one I missed, but like the great majority I got to see.
Okay, which brings me to my rapid fire questions. Try to think of all 115 films in your mind and answer. And for people watching,
Okay.
listening, I did not send these questions to Hector, so he has no idea. But think fast. Okay, so what is your overall take on the season so far?
Film festival overall, like
Yeah, or our film season, I guess.
Okay, in terms of film festivals, I think it's excellent. I think it has been excellent. Of course, most of these films won't be released until next year, and even the smaller ones, it would take even 2 years or maybe three. I believe Comma by Bertrand Bodello is now having a US release, and that was a film that I really liked a lot. That was in the Cannes Film Festival from 2022 and played at New York at 2022. So no, overall, as film festivals go, most of them are fantastic. Cannes was excellent. Even I didn't get to cover much of it. Locarno was pretty good, and Venice as well, and New York was fantastic too. Sundance was the weaker festival, that was I had an awful time covering Sundance this year. I don't know why, but I think in terms of commercial releases, the regularly release films, I think that is what I consider the weaker, side of the film spectrum. The ones released, I don't know, most of the blockbusters that I saw, like most of the like big studio films, most of them I haven't liked. I think the last one I enjoyed, maybe, I don't know, maybe for Furiosa, and that was in May. And maybe there have been another one, but most of them, like, I like them, but well, not most of them I like it, but the ones that I have liked, the one predominant is the First Omen or
Mm.
Furiosa. And if there
Well,
have been other ones, I know
yeah.
they're forgetful, and it has to show in how, like, basic, how lazy some studios are. They're providing, as we say in Puerto Rico, porqueria. It's basically lazy stuff. It's basically trash. They're wasting our time and they're wasting their money creating these projects that are meant to be spectacle, but they don't have that element of spectacle. They don't have that sense of cinema, that power of cinema. Most of them are like boring visual effects showcases that
Mhm.
have even visual horrid visual effects. The people, they call me a hater here in Puerto Rico because I go to the screenings and they ask me, "Do you like the film?" I said, "You know what? No, I don't like it. I don't like it." And the thing is that I want to see good things. I want to see big studios like learn from their mistakes, but they aren't learning absolutely nothing.
Mm. Okay, Erica, as we move through the questions, if you have an answer for one of these, I want you to answer too, and I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
So, biggest hope for the Oscar season in general?
The brutalist that has those successes, potentially has on paper.
Okay, I will say my biggest hope is that they spread the wealth and we see a lot of different nominations across films and they don't cluster, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've seen enough yet to make a good, statement here, but Shadan, I agree with you. I want to see the wealth spread. I don't want it to be the same things just over and over and over again. But I also do want to say that because I'm so excited for Wicked, I hope Wicked gets some type of nomination. I'm sure it will for something. And I want Night Bitch to do well. So
I just want Wicked to be good. Like
Yeah.
at this point, I'm like, I just want it to be a good movie. Okay,
Yep.
movie no one is discussing that could be an Oscar surprise.
Uh, hmm. I don't know. Maybe, can it be a documentary?
Sure.
There's a documentary that played at Sundance, which is now releasing, called Black Box Diaries, which I think is very fascinating. That I wish it had the attention of Oscar voters. Daomi, which is played at the festival, a documentary from Maddie Diop that I wish it garnered more attention too. So I wish those two films, those two documentaries, that the Oscar voters have them in their lineup, in their like watch list, and in their eye.
Black Box Diaries and what else?
Daomi.
Okay. What is a movie that everyone is talking about that you think is going to end up being a total bust come Oscar nomination morning?
Um, I don't know if Maria now is having that kind of conversation. I don't know if Maria is up to that point. But I think, like, previously, like during the Venice release, the Venice premiere, that point, at that point, I think it had a bit more buzz, so maybe that. I think even the room next door, I have seen many people like at Gold Derby, or the Oscar Expert app. I don't remember which one, the name of it, but I have seen people like trying to push the room next door, but I don't think that, like, outside of maybe adapted screenplay or enacting performances, I don't see it like going to surpass, I don't know, like 3 nominations, 4 nominations. Just because it is in English language and it is Pedro Almodovar, I don't think that already cements it as a potential Best Picture nominee, or director or something like that.
Biggest case of potential category fraud?
Hmm. I don't know. I know. I think you got me on that one. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe. Well, you mentioned that Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton are both going for actors. If for some reason they end up liking the movie, it might happen like a Judas and the Black Messiah types. Well, not that
Mm.
degree, but they nominated the two actors because they liked the movie a lot, and there was no space in Best Actor, so they said, "Oh, they put Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya together." So like I don't know, like separate them, put Julianne Moore in supporting and Tilda Swinton in actors. It might be a random thing to say
Mm.
or like to think about, but like if they end up liking the movie, which I don't think so, at least to that big degree, but maybe that can happen if they like the movie a lot.
I'll say Zoe Saldana is clearly a co-lead in Amelia Perez, and going
Oh yeah,
supporting
that's another
is
one. Yeah.
very much category fraud. Okay, so you mentioned queer having just being stunning in terms of cinematography. What is some like crafts that you would like to see recognized across the films that you saw? Maybe name three crafts.
Everything. I would know everything. I would nominate it for everything. I want to see the production design because, as I mentioned, I think it takes elements from paintings that like constructed because I think he mentioned that he shot it mostly in sets. No, it was all a sound stage and stuff. So, they built all of that. So I think that craftsmanship, I think it adds to the element of building that purgatory that Daniel Craig's character is going through. He's walking alone until he finds Drew Starkey's, Allerton. So I think the production design is really key. Um, Maybe the costume's not a much because it's just like dapper stuff. It's not that wow, but maybe cinematography, as you mentioned, the film editing. I think it's pretty solid. I would also nominate that. Text. Let's see. Maybe sound or like for some reason. I don't know. I would nominate everything basically. I love that film a lot. It was one of my favorite watches of at least from the ones I saw at New York. The ones from the ones I saw at New York that I haven't seen without counting the ones I saw previously.
Okay, actor most likely to get all of the precursor nominations and miss out on the Oscar nomination the morning of.
I'm starting to think about it. Maybe Daniel Craig, because
Mm.
okay, so I think BAFTA might be more keen because hometown boy, and the Golden Globes, I think they like him somewhat. They like everybody, but he's a big celebrity. He's James Bond. Why not nominate James Bond? They might do that, but I don't know. I think maybe the Academy might see queer and they think it's so weird and such a bold, strange movie. From a book that wasn't finished, and they had to construct an ending, find an ending for these characters, and in that path of constructing that ending, the film itself finds has a weird pattern, has a weird structure, and that some people feel cold towards it, and others, like me, were transfixed by it. So I think maybe Daniel Craig or maybe even Timothy Chalamet for the Bob Dylan film,
Mm.
because again, talking about potential trite autobiographical portraits, I think from the trailers, I think that is going to be another one of those type of films. I don't know if you think the same, but if you have seen the trailers, are you convinced that Timothy Chalamet is Bob Dylan? Like he looks like a little kid playing dress up. It's it's one of the problems I had with a film I saw on Thursday, Saturday night, which I thought everybody felt like they were playing dress up. It was like playing cosplay. And I think what's the name? A Complete Unknown, Timothy Chalamet feels like a cosplayer for Bob Dylan, and he's even trying. He has that accent, that Minnesota accent. You're like, what? I don't know. It feels all too strange, and I don't think. I don't know. I don't see it, but he has potential. But if one of it's one of the two, I believe.
Yeah, speaking of a movie that people are talking about that they're not going to be talking about, come Oscar morning, Saturday night is going to be gone, in my humble opinion. And then
Yeah.
I think Selena Gomez, I'm sorry to say, could be one of those people that gets in everywhere and then misses the Oscar nomination.
Yeah, it could
Okay.
be too, because she has a great following. So that great following might help her, let's see, on SAG, because she's very popular, and maybe Golden Globes because it is a musical. Although I think it's
Mhm.
a very, very awful musical, I think it's terrible, a terrible, terrible film, you know. So that's why I haven't mentioned it much. I forgot about it, but that might happen too. She has a great following, but at the same time, if they move, as you mentioned, Zoe Saldana to supporting and Sofia Gascon, Carla Sofia Gascon to lead, there may be like little spaces for the other players that are in that category. So it might happen.
All right, Hector, give us 3 movies that you think everyone should watch out of
From
your out of your 115 festival list. 3
oof,
movies you think all of our listeners should watch.
The Shrewds by Dave Cronenberg because he is my favorite filmmaker, and somehow it is his most personal film, again with the theme of veteran filmmakers looking back on their lives and exploring their mourning processes and death itself or fear of death, by the Shrewds. If I can add the two of them, the double bill of scenarios and It's Not Mia, C'est pas moi, the Godard and Carax double bill, because I think they must be seen together in order to have that full effect, to have that duality, that the farewell and the honoring of the dead, in some cases, and still thematically relevant with the Roots itself. And a third one, there are plenty, because I really liked a lot Afternoons of Solitude. I really liked April, and there's also Oh Canada. Maybe I don't know. I don't know which one to choose. Afternoons of Solitude because it's brutal and visceral and uses like tauromachy or bullfighting as like a ballad of life and death, in very fascinating ways. The camera is basically very, very close, and you see the expressions of both the bull and the bullfighter, and el torero y el toro, the man and beast. It's very, very fascinating piece of cinema, and people are criticizing its repetitiveness, but I think it's more like an exploration of ritual, an exploration of culture itself, because bullfighting is like the predominant sport in terms culture-wise in Spain, and Spanish-speaking language countries, and I don't know. I found it really, really fascinating project, and Albert Serra, although he's highly criticized by people because he is pretentious, and in 2019, since 2019, he mentioned, "Oh, I'm going to make the best film about bullfighting." And people were like, "No, you aren't. No, you're not going to do that." But I think he might as well did. I think that and Francesco Rossi's The Moment of Truth, I think those are the two films that are like at the staple of bullfighting films. So I think on that regard, those three, the Shrewds, the double bill of Scenarios and C'est pas moi, and Afternoons of Solitude.
Okay, so you said you were a hater. I'll give you an opportunity to be a hater right now. Three films that you think everyone should avoid and not even bother watching.
Yes, I think there should be more than three.
Rapid fire, buddy. Rapid fire.
Okay, okay. Emilia Perez, of course, is awful movie. That one's awful. Which one I hated a lot? Does it have to be from festivals? No, okay, no. I complicated myself because then if I capture like regular releases, I have a lot of them. Um, yeah, let's mention Saturday Night. Avoid Saturday Night. It's an awful film, a really trite film, boring, and Maria as well. Well, on some regards, okay. So there's some things I love about Maria and some things I absolutely loathe. But just as a rapid fire, let's add Maria to the bunch. But oh, the Elton John documentary, of course, that's another boring project that serves little to nothing in terms of cinematic, um, power. It's all of those and the many more I have hated that are recorded on my letterbox.
Okay. All right, Hector, you are an Oscar voter, and I want you to give me your wins for the following categories: picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. And it could be adapted or original, whatever. But
Do
start
I
with
do I?
picture.
Okay, so like does it have to be like singular? Do it have to be like one film, like one, like can it be like picture? Can it be like, I don't know, every film, like one
No,
film
like
every?
you're giving out the Oscar. So what's
Oh,
best
I'm
picture?
giving. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Best picture. Can it be whatever film that I want?
Sure, it's your game. You can do whatever you want.
Well, okay. If we're going to go personal, I think maybe The Beast by Bertrand Bonella will give it best picture. But if we're
Okay.
going with the probable ones, I think The Brutalist. I think that's the most fascinating film that is on the Oscar radar. I think that one's like the towering film, the defining film in terms of cinematic prowess, and also thematically. I think thematically it fits together. Like it, I had seen many people like talking about it, like that it is one of the most important films of the year, and I think so too. So I think I will give that picture. In terms of director, I think The Beast as well in terms of personal ones. I think that has to be some of the best direction of the year. I think it's amazing how Bonello adapts Henry James short book. And I think director, I'm going to repeat too. I'm going with Brady Corbett with The Brutalist because his direction is so towering and how he takes elements from the epics of the past, like the Ten Commandments and Lawrence of Arabia, all of those classic films that defined a certain point in cinema, and seeing a reinvention or at least like a resurrection of some sort of these form of epics, through Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer, and seeing Brady Corbett do that, be even more powerful and with even less of a budget, I think it's utterly fascinating. So I'm gonna give it that as well. And which one were the other awards? I forgot, my
Actor,
bad.
actor, actress, and screenplay.
Okay, so actor, I think actor is in terms of favorite, I think maybe in between both of Daniel Craig and Adrian Brody. I think those are two of the most complex and fascinating performances of the year. And in a way, it's like a change of pace in terms of both careers. One, Daniel Craig coming from the Knives Out films, which I think are poor excuses of comedy films, but and then doing James Bond, doing this again, going back to the dramatic films that initially intrigued people to cast him as the figure of Bond, in my opinion, the best Bond ever. Doing this, which is like a change of pace, I think I found it really fascinating. At the same time, it's like a rise from the ashes from Adrian Brody, from being a sidebar in Wes Anderson films, or being in random indie dramas that got zero to no attention, or being in action pictures that nobody even saw too. It's also really fascinating, and they have some of the most complex and intricate and poignant characters, in from the ones in the race and overall in the year. So I think though one of the two, I can't choose between the two. I'm still tethering between the two, so I don't know. um you mentioned actors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so actors, I'm going to go with Fernanda Torres from I'm Still Here. I think that is a wonderful performance, and she's a veteran actress that I have admired for a long time, a Brazilian actress, and I think she's utterly fascinating. Again, it's another complex character that, in some ways, you have seen this type of role before, because it is a woman struggling with dementia, and they're struggling with memory and trying to recap certain events, and she's being asked of those events, but she starts to tether a bit between, because she doesn't actually remember bits and pieces. There's some pieces missing, but those pieces are the ones that she must remember. Those are the ones that are going to help her throughout the narrative. And I don't the way she there's something about her face, her expression, in those moments when she wants to try to remember, and when she does remember, it's so beautiful in a way, so sentimental, that I found it very powerful. And screenplay, I don't know. There's so many films. There's so many films with many amazing screenplays, but the Beast and Adapted, the Brutalist original. I don't know, but maybe I'm going to go with that, and maybe I'm overloading the Brutalist with all of the awards. But it is the film. It is the film that basically defines, at least for me, the cinematic year. It is the most towering film of all the bunches. If you want to see something cinematic, both modern and the past, it is the Brutalist. And thematically, that film covers that, that vision of the past, and molded to something modern, through Laszlo Top's, Adrian Brody's character, as he, builds this piece that later, but okay, I won't mention this because it is a bit of a spoiler, and I won't want to spoil all of that. But the thing is, thematically it matches, so I don't know. I think the Brutal is deserving of all of those awards.
I love how my greatest wish for the Oscar season was spread the wealth, and Hector's like, no, just give the Brutalist everything.
Okay, so in my fairness, you asked me. I didn't know this question was going to pop up, so I just thinking like from fresh memory, more or less. But maybe I may spread the wealth a little bit more. But at least, like, in my heart, if this is like, you go and choose, like, this is what my heart is saying. My mind and heart and soul is saying. My cinematic mind and heart.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and I'll let out because you're struggling right now. I feel like you're like sweating, like it's like I feel bad. This is like torturing you a little bit, and you can't say the Brutalist for this answer, by the
Okay,
way.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
so think across all of the movies that you saw, whether it was like a virtual, whatever. What was like the experience for you of like being in the room and being like really moved by something, whether it was because of the director's Q&A, the audience reaction, like what really got you?
Um, hmm. There have been plenty. There have been plenty. Maybe because of my attachment to Cronenberg cinema, maybe The Shrewds. Since he's my favorite filmmaker, and in there, that is his most personal film. He's talking basically about the loss of his wife of almost 40 years, and now she's gone, and he's in a way expressing his grief through his cinema, through his weird inventions, through basically a device that watches your loved ones decompose. It's in a way somewhat weird in his own creative mind and ingenious mind, but it is poetic. It is very touching. It's very moving, and he uses conspiracy theories as a way for us to understand, well, at least, but him and the character he creates, that's almost based off him, played by Vincent Cassel, like, of how we explore our own grieving processes. We start to think, why did this happen? It may be something that happened. I think he mentioned, oh, something that happened at the doctor's, or a romance or an affair, something. But it's almost like a distraction to avoid us thinking about, in a way, death, or the coldness of death. But I think that may be the film that moved me the most. Of course, there's also the Leos Carax short intertwined with the Jean-Luc Godard short. So if you think of them like back to back, that's also really moving. But I think The Shrewds may be the film that I watched this year that moved me the most.
All right, Hector, tell the people where they can find you. Plug away, my friend.
Um, I write reviews, of course, for In Session Film, the movie buff, Loud and Clear Reviews. I have a podcast in Spanish called La Tanda Medianoche with my good friend Angel Serrano. And I'm also doing a couple episodes for the PRCA podcast, the Puerto Rico Critics Association podcast. Soon. I still editing them. I'm a bit in a rush with writing reviews and doing the podcast, and I have to edit and do a bunch of stuff. So I'm still doing festival work, even if the festival ends tomorrow. So yeah, I'm doing all of that stuff.
And Erica with some fun travels and events. Where can people stalk a certain cultural phenomenon that you'll be going to this week?
Yes, I'm going to see Miss Taylor Allison Swift on Friday in Miami. Cannot wait. I'm at eRock Reviews on Twitter, of course, and I think I've said this before. I am just so excited to see all these films finally when they are actually coming out and not at the festivals, because I wasn't not able to get to any festivals this year. But it was so fun to hear you, Hector, talk about it. You saw so many films, and it's just so cool and so exciting. And I, for one, I just think it speaks to how good the Brutalist is, because literally everyone that we have talked to about it has had the same reaction. So like,
Yeah.
my expectations are like through the roof, but I'm super excited for it. But anyways, yes, sorry, I just went off on a tangent. But yes, at eRock Reviews, you can see me there and see me screaming every single word at the Taylor Swift concert in Miami on Friday. So
one dear friend is going to see Taylor Swift, and another one saw 115 movies at a film festival. Where does that put me? I don't know. And I will say, Hector, when I said, how many films have you seen? And you said 115. My immediate reaction was to say, like, I'm proud of you. And then that's a weird thing to say to somebody. So I did not type that. But I feel very proud of you for the work, the legwork that this took.
It's truly an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Truly an accomplishment, for real.
Yeah. I am at Shadan Larkey everywhere. Please follow In Session Film. Rate, review us, tell your friends about us. Reviewing us helps so much for people to find us. I don't know how the algorithm works, but leaving a review is a big, big help. So if you even want to do one small thing to support this podcast, that would be great. Hector, I know how busy you are. Thank you for the time. And Erica, in the middle of all your dog sitting duties, you took the time.
Yeah, Tucker made a quick appearance there, so find him on YouTube. He's super cute.
Yes. That's a wrap, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.